The 6-year-old, stated by the officer, keeps saying something about her dad, kept telling her not to let them in as the police begin to walk around the kitchen. So, was it the 6-year-old that actually had to open the door? None of the adults could be bothered to do it, or they were too high to even notice that people were knocking on the door. I don't know for sure if that's what happened here, but it kind of sounds like the 6-year-old is the one that had to open the door. That's the person taking on the most adult responsibilities at that point in time. The other cop is in the back of the closet looking at a shelf saying there's all kinds of THC, vapes, and adult stuff. You can't see it from Pomplin's point of view, but it's clear these are out in the open, easily visible and accessible to anyone who walks in, including the kids. So the kids know all about the Baldo and whatever other toys he's got laying around. At 9:31, we see him swab around the pillow and it tests positive for cocaine. Then we see him pick up a black vial, looks like a lipstick tube, and when he unscrews it, we see white powder. The officer responds with a, "Oh yeah." Kayla walks in shortly after, looking strung out. She's wearing a backless shirt, and you can see all of her back tattoos. At 9:39, we head outside to deal with April and Nick and finally cuff and arrest them. April is in a really slutty top. I do not try to call out fellow women for how they dress, but it is really inappropriate to wear around kids and a married couple, regardless of any other factor. Well, the kids, I agree, but if it's like a polycule, I think that's probably the most appropriate type of adult to wear something like that around. No, kids for sure, but it's basically appropriate to wear whatever you want. You could wear a Glad bag around Nick and Kayla, and I'd say you're dressed up. She looks and sounds so dry. Honestly, it does not even look or sound like her. She actually looks like a trans person. Ever since Nick Rekieta was initially arrested about a year ago, Null of Kiwi Farms did some crowdfunding, I believe $5,000 or $6,000, in order to have that body cam footage made public. Because Nick Rekieta is this guy who liked to go on stream and tell people how to live lives, act as if he was some sort of guiding figure who knew how you should run your life. But from what I've heard, he was living like a disgusting rat, and his house was a hoarder's nest. So I'm very invested in seeing, oh, how does this guy who tells people how to live their lives live? Because if he lives like an absolute bum, oh, I'd like to see that. Just disqualify everything that the guy says right there. I mean, everything he says is pretty much already disqualified anyway, but just more on top of that. But anyway, there's been quite a bit of back and forth and difficulties getting the actual body cam footage itself. We do have some notes and transcripts of the body cam footage, which we'll go over here in a little bit. But first, I want to play some of Null of Kiwi Farms talking about where he's at with getting the body cam footage and why it is that we just have notes and a transcript right now.
This doesn't even deserve an intro song because this is dead serious. I want everything about Rekieta's house on the internet now, chat. Okay, I was instructed by Rekieta that I'm supposed to tard rage on stream today, and so tard rage I will. Here is the update. So, yeah, it's a rough one. So here's what happened. Just in brief. 3 people were meant to go to the courthouse today to finalize their notes. So we would have 3 notes from 3 different women for both videos. And because right now we have partial notes for one of the videos and complete notes on one of them. However, at the last second, literally the prosecutor filed something yesterday. And in the first hour that the court was open, the judge...
This is the prosecutor, the person representing Kandiyohi County or the state against Nick Rekieta is the person that did this.
The prosecutor filed something yesterday, and in the first hour that the court was open, the judge suppressed the evidence, which was already entered into evidence, and the women received a prompt email minutes after it was filed saying that they would no longer have access to the footage today if they showed up at court. So, to clarify, the body cam footage was entered into evidence, and it was entered into evidence by Rekieta because Rekieta was hoping to prove that April was not properly Mirandized, but she was properly Mirandized. And this was important because Rekieta attempted to assert that April was not a resident of their home, but a guest, so that her possessions would not be his possessions, which could be the case if she was a resident of the home. April told the officer explicitly, and after being Mirandized, that she had been living there for a month and was therefore a resident of the home, and her possessions were possessions that belonged to the household. So it is an incredible move, and
it's pretty obvious, even without her saying that to the cops. because when Nick Rekieta put his second house that's on more or less the same property as his primary home online for sale, people found April's belongings in pictures that was on the listing of the house. They went through the photos on the listing and compared them to April's Instagram, and they found pieces of clothing and stuff like that that were clearly hers.
That belong to the household. So it is an incredible move, and it happened extremely fast. So we will be suing the county of Kandiyohi County to get the body cam footage because we have gone through a very rigorous process in order to obtain authorization to get it. And here's what we did. When we realized that the body cam footage had been entered into evidence by Rekieta, we asked the judge for an order or we asked the sheriff to release it. The sheriff said he would not release it. Now, ordinarily, things like the body cam things entered into evidence could just be retrieved from the court. There's no issue retrieving any other document entered into court as public record. But the body cam footage features his children. Very brief. They're not there throughout the entire video, but they are there. So in order to release them into the public under Minnesota data law, they have to be censored. And it is the responsibility of the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office to censor the depictions of minor persons in the evidence and to release it to us.
And I'm sure I could be missing some details, but from what I've heard, this is like the only legitimate delay that I've heard Kandiyohi provide is that we need to censor the kids, which fair enough. That makes sense to me, and the kids shouldn't have to be exposed any more than they already have just by their dad being a menace to society. But beyond that, just a bunch of nonsense.
Office to censor the depictions of minor persons in the evidence and to release it to us. The sheriff said no. The sheriff said he would not do that, even though it was released into evidence. So we then petitioned the judge to make a declarative statement that the evidence, the body cam footage, was evidence, and therefore it was public record. We received this. Judge Wetzel, who is also the same judge as in the criminal case, issued an administrative order clarifying that the body cam footage was public record and therefore it should be released. We sent the judge's court order to the sheriff asking that the body cam footage be released as he said it should be, and the sheriff said, I will not be complying with the court order, which is just an absurd statement that actually was so shocking to us that Hardin had to reach out for several other opinions just to make sure he hadn't completely lost his fucking mind. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to understand the law or anything like that, but it sounds completely absurd that the judge gives you an order that, yes, the sheriff, they have to release this body cam footage, and then the sheriff just says no. I don't understand how that would be anything that along the lines of what you could do, right? Like again, I don't understand all that much of the law, but I do know sheriff somewhere down here and judge somewhere up here, right?
that Hardin had to reach out for several other opinions just to make sure he hadn't completely lost his fucking mind and he wasn't witnessing the sheriff actually saying that he was not going to comply with a court order because what the fuck. So after that happened, we considered suing. However, a law firm, a big law firm that Hardin knew, sent a letter to the sheriff and said, "What are you doing?" And after that, they got into contact. The sheriff actually knew this law firm, so they reached out, and we decided to contact the Minnesota Department of Administration. And we did this for a specific reason. Statutorily, if the government of Minnesota is doing something wrong and you sue them, you can win attorney's fees if certain things are in your favor. However, if you contact the Minnesota Department of Administration and you get them to issue an opinion that you are in the right and the government still ignores itself and does not do what the opinion says to do, you are mandatorily awarded attorney's fees, meaning there is no discretion for the judge to consider. He must, under state law, issue you your attorney's fees. So we went to the Minnesota Department of Administration and we asked them to clarify if the sheriff was bound to his own court. And the Minnesota Department of Administration said yes, he should comply with this. We sent this letter to the sheriff who said, okay, give me until June 2nd to respond. So we decided we would wait until June 2nd before suing. But if he did not respond by June 2nd with the body cam footage or with a timeline that he would release it to us, we would be suing the Kandiyohi County Sheriff because we were mandatorily awarded attorney's fees. So it's basically free to sue him. Today is May 30th. And
Yeah, so if the sheriff doesn't give this up and then they pursue Josh pursues this any further, it's guaranteed that he gets attorney's fees back. So there's basically no cost other than his time and effort to pursue this. That's the level this is at of just absurd resistance from the sheriff to hide this body cam footage.
So it's basically free to sue him. Today is May 30th, and on May 29th, so 4 days before he was going to issue his response to us, as he promised, the prosecutor in the case filed a motion with the court under Judge Wetzel, the same Wetzel as before, saying that he wanted this evidence suppressed because it wasn't technically entered into record, which is a false statement. It was used as evidence to make important decisions about if somebody was Mirandized or not, as a result of Rekieta's own filings. The judge, the next day, approximately an hour and 50 minutes ago.
Imagine if Nick got off on that technicality, or they didn't Mirandize somebody. So all of this is just thrown away. I mean, as is, he really didn't get much of a punishment unless he violates his probation and gets punished for that. But currently, as is, not that big of a deal in terms of legal punishment. I think he has to do some community service, which that's probably the worst part to to Nick. He would hate to help society out like that.
Judge, the next day, approximately an hour and 50 minutes ago, and an hour after court opened, less than an hour, 51 minutes after court opened, not only approved his motion, but entered it into the docket and got the county clerk to tell the women that were going to visit this morning that they should not come, which is a level of alacrity that you never see in any level of the judicial system, which means that the prosecutor personally walked this to the judge and said, I need this signed right the fuck now because they're about to intervene. And it's much harder to undo something that has happened in court than it is to intervene immediately and to stop it from happening in the first place. So they did. And now we're going to have to sue anyways and undo the thing that already happened, which is a losing position. But it theoretically, under the rules of law, it is actually possible and actually likely. But it is an incredible circumstance. It is unbelievable that this is actually what happened. And it's it really makes you wonder, like, what the fuck and why. So I would like to say,
Yeah, it really seems like some bizarre small town stuff. What was that Dan Aykroyd movie where they drive through some small town and there's this judge who has this crazy mansion with like booby traps and stuff in it, and they're just doomed to spend forever and ever there because it's some small town and the judge has all of the power there. I mean, it's that sort of stuff going on here in Kandiyohi.
that if you go to the Kiwi Farms right now, there's a post. I'm actually going to feature this on the front page right now since I have working internet again. Let me remove this, and then I'll globally feature this, and so people can find it. Let's see. The notes for the Rekieta body cam footage are now public, and I'll feature this. So you can read along if you would like. I am going to go through the notes together with you live on stream, but if you have no interest in listening to me talk, you can go ahead and read those notes right now by yourself. I don't judge you for it. If you are a streamer and you want to boot up the notes and read them, I should clarify that
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. I think he says a little bit more about it here before he gets
the
into
notes
it.
on officer. So here's the issue, and here's why I'm a little bit peeved by this. Like, admittedly, I was shocked that the prosecutor filed his thing. I am actually irritated that it happened so quickly because we had 3 volunteers to go do this. One of them is a busy woman who is a student and did not have the opportunity to come up immediately. And as a matter of fact, the woman who is the only woman that keeps the schedule for the entire county court apparently had a very busy schedule as well, and there were only certain days that people could come. So they would have all gone the first week when we figured out that this happened, but the schedule was so tight that that couldn't be arranged. So even the scheduling of the court were slanted in a way to give as much time as possible. But all 3 women were supposed to go. So we had woman A, who is an anonymous user. I know who she is, but she is just a mother. She has her own kids, and she's not a Kiwi Farms user, but she's aware of Rekieta because Rekieta was super famous, right? So she volunteered to go and received word that I was looking for somebody to go through word of mouth.
That is hilarious to me that there's some woman, a mother, who doesn't even use Kiwi Farms, but is familiar with Nick Rekieta and is willing to go to the court and watch the body cam footage, take notes on it, so that all the Kiwi farmers and YouTube people can know what's going up. I mean, I really appreciate that dedication from just some random mom.
Super famous, right? So she volunteered to go and received word that I was looking for somebody to go through word of mouth from other people. She went and she saw the entire body cam footage by Officer Pomplin, who was the one who interviewed Rekieta. And so her note is complete. The second woman who also attended the omnibus in Heron is Tiki Man 2 on the Kiwi Farms. She went, and because of severe technical difficulties at the courthouse, despite being there for several hours, she was only, I think, 5+ hours. She was only able to capture, I think, the first hour plus of the hour 45-minute view of Robbie, who was the second video cam footage. The first woman then went back to the courthouse and tried to watch Robbie's video. They also had severe technical difficulties and only got the first 45 minutes, I want to say, of the video. Actually, I think it was a little bit longer. I think she got an hour, and the other woman got like an hour and a half of the footage. So there was no complete description of Officer Robbie, which is unfortunate because I think there's a part where he's digging through a closet looking at sex toys and stuff from his perspective. The third woman did not get to go. She was meant to go today. All three of them were meant to go today and watch both videos over many, many hours and take complete notes and have all three of the footage, all three testimonies of both body cam footages. The alacrity of the court has eliminated that. So I do have the complete notes for Pomplin. I have 2 partial notes for Officer Robbie. I have the first woman is transcribing her handwriting into digital format, so I'll release that third note as well. It is a little bit upsetting that we didn't get 3 as I had wanted, but the body cam footages, based off the notes of the first 2 women, are very similar, and they include the details that are most interesting anyways. So I'm just going to go ahead and...
So there you go. That's the setup for what we're looking at. And if you want to look at this for yourself, you can go on Kiwi Farms. It's one of the highlighted posts right now, so you can find it very easily. But if not, just go to the Nick Rekieta thread and you can get it there. So yeah, audio note. There are sound issues throughout the footage. The volume was originally set to 100% and was so loud and distorted that most of the early dialogue was incomprehensible. It sounded like the speakers were blown. Even after turning it down to 8%, there were still problems hearing due to background noise, a barking dog, overlapping voices, radio chatter, and Pomplin's movement. Some of the dialogue is paraphrased to the best of my ability. Camera note. This video is from Officer Pomplin's body cam. He moves around a lot and rarely stays in one place for long, so the footage can be jumpy and hard to follow. That, combined with the noise and clutter, adds to the chaos. 9:15 to 9:33. Entry and early drug discovery. The video begins with officers ramming the front door. As they enter, the first thing you see is a scared child. The house is extremely filthy. The floors are completely covered in clothes and junk. In some areas, there's no walkway at all. You actually have to walk on stuff to move through the space. Countertops are stacked with random items, and liquor bottles are everywhere. The filth and hoarding are immediate and overwhelming. I mean, right there, that's a confirmation that this guy was living like a sewer rat. So much so, if you've watched any of the hoarder shows or anything like that, I'm sure you've seen the houses where there's one narrow path through all the junk that you can see, but they're even past this point where there's paths that are semi-blocked from all of the garbage and various belongings. And this is a guy that's telling people how to live their lives. Like, oh yeah, I'm a family man. You guys should be doing what I do. No thanks. I don't think anybody should live like you, Nick. The mess you see in Nick's kitchen when he shows it on stream is nothing compared to the rest of the house. That one space is clearly staged. It's obviously he only cleans the visible area specifically for streaming. I'm pretty sure I've seen a picture of XQC where that's what he does. You know, the set or whatever that's on stream is decently clean, but then right outside the frame, there's just garbage all over the place, fast food, pop pop cans and just nonsense all over the place. So that's the level that Nick is at. Well, no, Nick is way worse than that. 9:16. Kayla and April are being brought out of the house and led outside. A dog can be heard barking in the background. 9:17. Officers call to a child who is downstairs. The kids are being removed from the house while the search begins. One of the officers goes downstairs to retrieve the youngest child. She comes up holding the officer's hand. She speaks to him, but the audio was unclear due to background noise, so I couldn't make out what she said. As they headed toward the door, she pauses to pick up the cat so she can take it outside with her. The search continues. A nitrous tank is visible in the house. I saw Kino Casino, they were covering Nick Rekieta recently, some update. And to me, it looked like the picture had to be photoshopped. So I don't know, maybe it very well was. But his fingers were blue, like significantly blue. And supposedly that's from, I think it was called hypoxia, where you do so much nitrous that it deprives your blood of the oxygen that it needs, and so your extremities start turning blue, as if you were freezing to death in the wilderness or something like that. It was really disgusting. It made my skin crawl just to see the picture of that. Nick can be heard outside yelling, "Get out of my house." He says something about probable cause and a search warrant. He sounds indignant. 9:22. Officer Pomplin walks out to his squad car to get gloves. 9:23. As he returns, the camera catches all of the kids sitting on the ground outside with Kayla. They are huddled against the house. The scene is heartbreaking. 9:24. Kayla is taken back inside and searched. 9:25. Officer Pomplin enters a bedroom where other officers are photographing drugs and paraphernalia found on top of a red mini fridge. The fridge is being used as a nightstand. 9:28. They begin photographing evidence inside Nick's streaming room. The room is far smaller than expected, and the condition is much worse than anything seen on stream. There are bottles of alcohol everywhere. The entire space is buried under hoarded junk, electronics, collectibles, and random gear. His 5-monitor setup and other equipment are visible, but everything around it is chaotic. The curated background people see during streams is a total facade. They go through a bag full of brown glass bottles, each one wrapped in tissues. 9:33. An officer enters and informs them that cocaine was found in the bedroom where Kayla and April had come out of earlier. 9:33. Some of the officers meet up in the entryway after brief each other on the situation. One mentions that Nick is trying to ask them the questions instead of answering theirs. Another officer says they need to get statements, figure out who lives in the house, and call family services. The audio was unclear due to background noise, so the dialogue here is paraphrased to the best of my ability. Officer Pomplin goes back into the master bedroom where officers are still going through the red fridge being used as a nightstand. He then heads outside to talk to Nick for the first time, at least from what's visible on this camera angle. Pomplin tells Nick, "We want to ask you some questions, a quick interview. We want to get an idea of the layout of the house, where the nanny is at, and who all stays here." Nick immediately pushes back and asks, "What's your probable cause?" Pomplin replies, "You have the search warrant." They don't need probable cause. They have a warrant. The judge said, "You can go in and search this. I'm convinced it's worth our time." Nick stands there with his arms crossed. He's calm, but he looks like crap. He says, "Cool, you have no probable cause." Pomplin asks, "Are you willing to talk with me?" Nick responds, "Sure," then immediately adds, "You still have no probable cause." Pomplin says, "I'm not discussing that. You've been given the search warrant. You know how this works." I mean, maybe he really doesn't. I don't have any trust at all in Nick's legal knowledge. He really might not understand this. Nick again says something about probable cause. 9:38. Nick is reading his Miranda rights. They begin questioning him about the children and the other adults in the home. Pomplin confirms Kayla is his wife, then asks about the other woman. Nick gives April's name and says she's a friend. He says she does not reside there. Pomplin tells him she came out of the bedroom. Nick replies, "Okay, so she came out of the bedroom." Pomplin says, "When I have people over, they don't go in my bedroom." That's an excellent point, yeah. Nick snaps, "I don't give a crap what you do." Pomplin stays calm and says, "I'm just asking questions." Nick tells him, "You're not. You're making statements." Pomplin asks, "Where do you stay in the residence?" Nick says, "All over. It's my house." Pomplin asks, "Do you stay in the master bedroom?" Nick says, "When I'm there, I stay in there. Sure." Pomplin asks, "Is that where you sleep at night?" Nick says, "Yes." Pomplin responds, "That's all I needed to know." He then asks, "Do you want to tell me where things are in the house to help expedite the search?" Nick says, "Where what things are?" Pomplin replies, "You saw the warrant. We're looking for controlled substances." Nick says, "I'm not admitting to anything. That's ridiculous. You still have no probable cause." Pomplin says, "We're going to be searching the house. We're going to be contacting family services." Nick asks, "Why?" Pomplin says, "Because we've already found cocaine in the house." Nick just stares at him. Pomplin adds, "We're not here on a whim." Nick says, "Yes, you are." Pomplin says, "No, we're not." Nick repeats, "Yes." Pomplin tells him, "We came here looking for controlled substances. We were only in the house about 10 minutes and already found some." Nick responds, "I don't know anything about it." Nick says something about family services and mentions the grandparents. Pomplin tells him that's most likely what will happen, but family services has to be involved. We'll put them with a family member if we can. 9:42 a.m. Nick and April are both handcuffed in the driveway, facing each other. It's almost cinematic. April is looking at him with a pouty face and puppy dog eyes. She's wearing black cutoff shorts and a black long sleeve crop top. As Nick is being walked to the squad car, he tells the officer, "I hope you catch gonorrhea and die." Very rude. My goodness, what are you so upset about, Nick? Your life falling apart? Before putting him in the vehicle, they stop to photograph the sores on his arms. He has a lot of them. I mean, that's disgusting. I think we all knew that, but it is gross just to hear that confirmed. That's one of those things where I can kind of understand, why people would get super into drugs, but that's one of those things to me where that would disgust me too much. I would have to stop then. You know, the ruining your life stuff, sure, that's kind of whatever, but sores all over your body, no, that's disgusting. I can't do that. Nick asks, "Are you going to arrest my wife too?" Pomplin tells him, "Yes, but we're going to have her stay here and stay with the kids until family services and the grandparents get here." Nick is visibly seething. Pomplin says, "I'll come and talk to you when we're done at the jail." The audio was unclear due to background noise, so I couldn't make out Nick's response. Pomplin then walks away from Nick and over to April. He introduces himself and explains what's going to happen, tells her she's going to jail, and asks if she has any questions and whether she's been Mirandized. April says, "No, but I want to ask." Pomplin interrupts to confirm she has been read her Miranda rights. She has. He begins asking her questions. "Pomplin, how long have you been here?" April says, "Not that long, maybe a month. I'm trying to find my own place." Pomplin, "So you've been living here?" April, "Yep, I stay in the sunroom a lot. I've known the family for quite a while." So here she's just saying, "Yeah, I live there." Which part of Nick's defense was that no, she doesn't live there. She's just a visitor. Well, okay, that just kind of got blown up completely. And somehow he thought showing the body cam footage would prove his point there, when explicitly it disproves his point. Uh, Pomplin says, "You came out of the bedroom with Kayla, right?" April says, "Yes." Pomplin, "You were hanging out in there?" April, "Yes." Pomplin, "What were you doing in there?" April, "Kayla was sleeping and I was changing clothes." Pomplin tells her they're executing a narcotics search warrant. April shakes her head no, as if she's confused, in disbelief, or pretending not to understand. Another officer asks, "You were changing clothes in there?" April says, "Yes." He follows up, "You keep stuff in there?" April says, "Yes" again. At that point, another officer walks up holding two pairs of shoes. He puts one pair down on the ground. April looks at them and says, "Those aren't mine." The officer apologizes and says, "Sorry, there's a lot." April looks at the other pair still in his hand and says, "Those are mine." He places them on the ground. They're slip-on sandals with straps. April tries to put them on while handcuffed as they continue to ask her questions. They ask where she sleeps when she's staying at the house. April says, "Sometimes I stay in the sunroom. There's a couch in there. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, so sometimes I sleep next to Kayla on the bed." So she's just straight up telling the cops about the polycule just about here. She interrupts to ask for help putting on her sandals. The officers bend down and help her get them on her feet. When he finishes, the audio becomes harder to understand. The audio was unclear due to background noise, so the dialogue here is paraphrased to the best of my ability. One of the officers says something about the controlled substance search warrant and adds, "I'll let you think about that." April shakes her head no again, clearly overwhelmed or confused. They tell her she's being charged with fifth-degree felony controlled substance offense. April reacts, "Oh my God." The officer says, "We'll go from there. Any questions for me?" April responds, "No, I wouldn't know what to ask. Like I said, this is," she pauses, "scary." He tells her, "We'll meet up later and try to make it more clear for you," then places her in a squad car. 9:47 to 10:24. Kayla refuses to speak. Evidence logging. First safe opened. This is 9:47. A female cop holding a big gun says Kayla refuses to speak without her attorney present. Kayla and the kids are still sitting on the ground against the house behind the cop. Kayla is sitting with her head on her oldest daughter's shoulder. It's a heartbreaking scene. As Officer Pomplin is walking away, I hear the female cop say, "I'm going to try to get her some clothes." I'm unclear who she was referring to. As Officer Pomplin walks through the disgusting house, you can hear him let out a huge sigh as he looks at everything. He puts on some gloves. As he gets into the bedroom, he asks, "Are we still going through things in here?" I had a hard time understanding all the audio as the dog is barking loudly in the background. 9:48. The officer goes back to his car to get something. He drinks some Mountain Dew and gets some snuff. On his way back in, he passes Kayla and the kids again. He has interactions with another cop that I couldn't quite understand. Someone says something about the house being huge. 9:49. He heads back to his car again looking for something. Couldn't see what it was. On his way back in, one of the other cops is talking to the kids, obviously trying to make them comfortable. After he gets inside, again, the audio is hard to understand between background noises, radio chatter, and the dog barking. The dog is in the bathroom with the baby gate up. They have their dog like locked up in the bathroom. I don't know if this is confirmed, but I heard that he was letting the dog use the bathroom in the bathroom. Very disgusting. A little bit Red Bar-esque, supposedly. Red Bar, during the winter, I think when he lived in Chicago, he would just let his dog crap and piss in the shower or the bathtub because he was too lazy to take it outside. And there's this guy, Line Meows, that was talking about this, among other things about Red Bar. And Red Bar copyright strike the video. So I'm just saying that's confirmed, right? Why would you take down the video if that wasn't true? You can hear a conversation about drugs, firearms, and finding 22 casings. Officer Pomplin starts writing down a list of the evidence found. Number 1, snort tube found on the nightstand/fridge tested positive for cocaine. There are 4 cops searching the room. Officer Pomplin heads back to the squad car to retrieve evidence bags. Kayla is not sitting with the kids this time when he passes. So this nightstand fridge that he's using, the drugs are right in there. I mean, he needed quick access to these things. The minute he wakes up, he needs to be able to get high. You can't let a minute go past while being sober. That's just torture. 9:54 a.m. Officer Pomplin starts logging evidence again. Number 2, a glass vial that tested positive for cocaine from the nightstand. Number 3, 2 credit cards with April's name on them. So just 100% confirmed she was living in here. I mean, she basically said as much, but she's got clothes there. She's got her credit cards there. She said she slept there regularly. She said she slept in the master bedroom with Kayla sometimes. So yeah, she was not a visitor. She was living there, no doubt. All of this evidence is from the top of the cuck fridge/nightstand, which is covered in a bunch of miscellaneous junk, like a Celsius can, a couple of candles, a spray bottle of something, maybe lube, and an unframed picture of Nick and Kayla laying on top of other junk. One of the officers picks up a bottle of pills and says, this is paraphrased from memory, I wasn't able to hear what he said verbatim, something like, I found one of the kids' prescriptions right next to the cocaine. It has the name Celeste on it. The cops are mistaken. Celeste is Nick's mom. Is she giving him drugs or did he steal them? So the cocaine, the alcohol, all of that, not enough for Nick. He also needs his mom's prescription drugs. And I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure most of the time you're not supposed to mix prescription drugs with alcohol. But that doesn't seem to bother Nick at all. He'll go for it anyway. They look at 2 casino player cards with Nick and Kayla's names on them and take pictures of them. He turns to the other cops to see what they have found. 9:56. A cop pulls a paper bag out of an armoire and starts taking the stuff out of it. It sounds like he said something about a meth pipe, and then the other cop asks if they're used. He says this one looks dirty unless it's brown glass. So that doesn't necessarily mean they were doing meth. Or maybe use the meth pipe for coke or cocaine. Not coke, maybe for a cocaine rock though, right? 9:57. You can hear a cop say something about 2 spent 22 shell casings on the floor. One of the other cops finds pipes and bongs. They think they're unused. The dog is still barking incessantly. Officer Pomplin finally says, we've got to do something about that dog. 9:58. Officer Pomplin documents in his report the big gun that was found under the bed. 10 a.m. Pomplin continues processing and logging the evidence. He is still in the bedroom where the red fridge/nightstand is located. There's movement and chatter as the officers go through items. It's a mix of searching, bagging, and documenting. The audio is difficult to make out clearly because of overlapping voices, barking, and background noise. One of the officers says they found edibles. Another holds up what looks like a grinder and says it contains a white powder. They say they're going to test it. 10:01. You can hear a child back in the house. 10:02 to 10:24. Here's the second safe. Drugs inside. Family services update. 10:02. He's documenting more evidence, a metal container and 2 glass ones with powder. A female comes in asking about taking something to the jail for Kayla. One of the officers finds something under the bed. Officer Pomplin asks, what's that? Sounds like the other officer says something about a Supreme Court, unclear word, license. I couldn't make that out. 10:04, he asks the other cops, did you see Nick's arms? Track marks all down. He says, be cognizant of the possibility of finding needles, and then says they could be sores. And from what it sounds like, the state of Nick's house, you really would not want to be searching that when there's needles everywhere. Who knows what pile you try to sift through and there's just nails strewn about like some back alley. They mention they passed Nick in his car on the way to the house. 10:05, another cop comes in and says they're interviewing Mom right now. Pomplin says, we're going to be a while. They discuss areas they want to search thoroughly, the master bedroom, 2 studios, and the inner and outer vault/studio area. He calls the studio Nick's lair. They discuss what cops will be doing and what to search. 10:06, Officer Pomplin says, we need to do our due diligence for the kids, doing all we can. Pretty bad when somebody just walks into your house. I think it's been like a half hour at this point, and they already care more about your kids than you do. That's pretty rough. They are waiting for the kids and the dog to be picked up. They are splitting the cops up, 3 upstairs and others in other areas. 10:07. They discuss April's purse, ID, etc. They left it out because there was cash in it. Officer Pomplin leaves 3 cops searching the bedroom, and he starts walking towards the front door. He says something about a lot of stuff being in the studio. You can see Kayla with what appears to be 2 family service workers at the front door. 10:08. Officer Pomplin goes downstairs. It looks like a family room with a fireplace, some arcade games, a drum set, and other kids' stuff. This section is outside the area that leads to Nick's studio. As he goes into Nick's studio, he passes through a small library-type room with lots of books and random things on the shelves. 10:09. When he gets into the streaming room, someone mentions vials and something about homemade whiskey. I'm pretty sure I've heard Nick brag about how he gets all this super expensive whiskey, but it doesn't really count for all that much when you're just as a complete amateur making homemade whiskey, right? That more than cancels it out, and you're basically just exclusively drinking bottom shelf whiskey. Officer Pomplin opens a Ziploc bag and pulls out a small box that looks like it has a picture of food on it. It looks to me like something you'd get out of the frozen food section. Then he pulls out different vials. One has a brown substance in it, and he says one of them has brine written on it. So the man can't even get a proper container for all of his substances. He's just using some banquet meal container that he got off of Wings of Redemption. Then he pulls out different vials. One has a brown substance in it, and he says one of them has brine written on it. He says another one looks like it has whole pepper in it and comments that it's weird. Whole pepper, that is very strange. He pulls out a bag of seeds. Again, they say something about it possibly being for homemade whiskey or something. 10:11. Officer Pomplin starts going through a pile of papers. He looks at a handwritten letter. I took notes on it because it was weird and confusing. It was about a father and a daughter and said things like a dad admits selfishness in crisis, a dad getting all the crap but no praise, and the daughter practice her song just for dad. After Googling it, I found out it's about a South Korean horror film called Train to Busan. Weird crap, just documenting to be thorough. So sounds like maybe this is just a quote from this horror movie. I've also heard, I think was it Null that said it? I can't remember. But maybe he was doing some crackhead poetry and just writing down his insane thoughts throughout the various times that he was high on all the different substances. The next piece of paper is a letter from the county, the Department of Environmental Services. It's something about a building or shed or something. The next thing is a signed anime pic that looks exactly like this. Is that there? Did that get posted? Okay, let's come back and see if that loads. That looks exactly like this. Next is an autographed picture of Eric Rollon. It's signed, Here's looking at you, Nikki. It has a lipstick print on it, like a smooch, and says, P.S. Look here, with an arrow pointing to the button area of his shirt. I tried to do an AI version. This is the best I could do. Couldn't get it exactly right, especially the PS and the arrow. That looks like it is still loading. Oh, yeah. Those are the only attachments. So I guess we don't get to see that part. Maybe later. Next is a piece of unopened certified mail to Kayla with writing on the envelope. He then finds a cardboard box with question marks drawn on it in marker. He opens it, and inside there's a ton of shredded paper. He rummages through it and finds something that he thinks might have been a big shroom. He asks the other cop, and the cop says no. Officer Pomplin smells it and puts it back. It wasn't visible on the camera for very long. 10:12:46 a.m. 10:46. I think that's what it would be. Or 10:12 to 46 maybe. I don't know. Doesn't matter too much. Another cop comes in. He has a safe that he found under the bathroom sink in the master bathroom. It's a briefcase type safe that's locked, but it has part of a baggie hanging out. So Nick thinks he's so smart that the cops would never be able to get him. He wouldn't have to do any making up for all of his various crimes and mistreatment of his children and family. But he has all these drugs just out in the open. Within 10 minutes, they're finding stuff that validates the warrant that they have. And even the stuff that he puts in his safe is sticking out in a way where it's like, well, yeah, we definitely have to look into this safe. We can basically tell that there's something hiding in there that's probably drug related. They were able to test the part that was sticking out, and it tested positive for cocaine. The officer leaves to go look/ask for the key. He gets a quick phone call, then asks Kayla for the key. I mean, really, what a dope this guy is. And he thinks he's so much smarter than everybody else, and he's going to outsmart the entire legal system. But not only does he have like some Scooby-Doo type clue sticking out of the safe, but the part that's sticking out of the safe even tests positive for cocaine. I mean, what an utter dope. She's with the two family service workers. He tells her, "We need the key or we're going to have to break it open." She says she doesn't know where it is. 10:41 a.m. They go outside. The kids are still sitting on the ground. The cops walk behind the vehicles and break open the safe with what looks like a pry bar and mallet. The safe is full of drugs, paraphernalia, and baggies. They take a photo and say, "Let's get it to a better location." On their way into the house, another officer mentions that the grandparents are on their way. They take the safe to a small bathroom, place it on the toilet, and open it. There's a baggie that says KKK on the outside. They surmise it's ketamine. There's also a digital scale, snort tubes, a metal piece that looks like a crack pipe, and another metal item that looks like a spoon without a handle. He asks for another cop and says this is insane. His glove rips and he needs a new one. He says he thinks one is ketamine and the bites are either Molly or LSD. I mean, this guy had basically everything in his house. He's got the alcohol, Molly, and/or LSD, ketamine, maybe mushrooms. This man, he really has a strong aversion to being sober. This probation is not going to go well for him. They start documenting the evidence. There's the baggie that was sticking out of the safe, which tested positive for cocaine. There are also some cards and a rolled up dollar bill. Just a dollar bill? That's pretty poor. I would think someone like Nick should be using at least a 20, right? They find a large corner cut with white powder. There are Ziploc bags containing smaller bags. One of them has KKK written on it. Another Ziploc contains multiple small bags with powder. They find a digital scale, a metal pen or container, 2 snort tubes, and 2 cutters. 10:24 to 10:48, studio search, gun safe, Kayla's return. 10:24. Officer Pomplin goes back into the studio. A cop tells him they didn't search the stuff that's covered in dust since it obviously hasn't been touched recently. Didn't this guy had a nanny? How long had the nanny been gone at this point? That there's dust all over the place. I mean, really, these people are just living a very cretinous lifestyle. Very disgusting. One of them says there's a lot of weird stuff down there, like a bunch of pencil shavings. Pomplin says this is his hangout. I can't hear what the other cop says, but Pomplin responds, because you can't do it with your girlfriend and wife, I guess. I don't know. So they're joking about the polycule already, like less than an hour in to searching his house. And to be fair, they may very well have been aware of this before, as Nick really did not make any attempt to keep this a secret, and it's a small town, you know. Lots of people gossiped about this. I think it was his pastor, somebody from church, that reported him to the police. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was just common knowledge throughout his entire tiny little town. He's searching through the artwork that's leaning against the wall, including a cat painting, or the cat painting. You can see a close-up of a lot of the stuff that's usually behind Nick when he's streaming. They find a container or box of something and say it looks like cornstarch inside. He starts going through all of Nick's collectibles, opening boxes and looking inside. He says there aren't other safes. A family service worker asks about collecting electronics for the kids and says they're going to Grandma's. Officer Pomplin goes into a room where there are lots of clothing racks with clean clothes hanging up. Kayla's in there with the family service workers gathering clothes for the kids. The officer asks about getting electronics for them. 10:33. Officer Pomplin goes to the garage. He finds out there's another safe and gets the equipment to break it open. 10:35. They open it. Inside there are guns and ammo. He takes pictures of all the guns and the rest of the contents. I mean, that might be the single vaguely responsible thing that they did, locking up the guns and ammo. I'm kind of surprised that was locked up. One of the cops starts looking around at all the boxes and totes of stuff. He asks how long they've been living there. Officer Pomplin says, a while. The other cop says it looks like they have half unpacked boxes from moving or something. Pomplin says it might be April stuff. She said she's only been here for a month. I mean, how much more confirmation do we need that she was not just a visitor there? She's bringing boxes of stuff over. 10:37 a.m. Someone walks through the door with the dog on a leash. 10:38. An officer comes in and says there's another safe in the master bedroom closet. Officer Pomplin asks him to bring it out to the garage. They bring it in and break it open. Inside there are Ziploc baggies, a rolled up $100 bill with white powder. There we go. That's more what I was expecting from this guy with all of his super chat money. Rolling papers, a lot of THC cartridges, a scooper, and a small funnel. They're not sure what some of it is, but suspect fentanyl. They take pictures of it all. They leave the THC cartridges and don't put them into evidence. They say they'll test everything else at the station. I believe in Minnesota, I don't know how recent it was, but they have legalized marijuana there. So I think maybe at the time it was legal to have that. He probably didn't obtain it. Well, maybe he did get it. I don't think they actually, when I was visiting recently, they didn't have vapes and stuff available at the stores. You couldn't buy that. It had to be like all edibles and stuff. So I don't know. That may or may not have been illegal, but it doesn't seem like they really cared too much, which why would you with everything else that's going on there? They say they'll test everything else at the station. Officer Pomplin starts documenting all the evidence in his report: drugs, paraphernalia, guns, and ammo. He lists them all out, including the serial numbers on the guns. They discuss needing to do a basic sweep of the kids' rooms and the other bathrooms. 10:47. Kayla's mom arrives to pick up the kids and the dog. I believe that's Celeste, the owner of the prescription drugs. Again, you see the kids during this interaction. 10:48. Kayla walks in shortly after, looking strung out. She's wearing a backless shirt, and you can see all of her back tattoos. 10:48 a.m. to end. Final sweep and personal reflections. 10:48. They come across a box with April's name on it. They open it and inspect the contents. They start going through the kitchen cabinets, focusing especially on the one with all the pills and medicines. They think they found needles, but realize they're actually syringes without needles, the kind used for administering liquid medications. They do a final quick sweep of the rest of the house. 10:55 a.m. Officer Pomplin goes back into the master bedroom walk-in closet with another officer who debriefs him on where they found the previous evidence, like the bullet and the other safe. The other cop is in the back of the closet looking at a shelf, saying there's all kinds of THC, vapes, and adult stuff. I think those are the toys that Null mentioned that I don't think they really got to see the footage of because of all the technical issues trying to watch the video at the courthouse. You can't see it from Pomplin's point of view, but it's clear these are out in the open, easily visible and accessible to anyone who walks in, including the kids. So the kids know all about the Baldo and whatever other toys he's got laying around. 10:56. They announce that everyone else is gone and they start collecting all their stuff. 10:58. One of them brings up the incident where Nick threw the warrant on the ground. What a child. No, I don't want that. And throws the warrant on the ground. So embarrassing. By 11 a.m., they all leave. And we got additional personal observations. The house has a very weird layout. The location of the master bedroom is especially concerning. It is very close to the main communal areas, making it easy for kids to overhear things they shouldn't, like sexual noises, arguments, and other adult conversations or activities. The messiest and most hoarded areas of the house are the ones the adults spend the most time in. The streaming setup is highly curated. What viewers see on camera is a complete illusion. Behind the scenes, it's filthy, cramped, and chaotic. Not all of the other drugs and paraphernalia were hidden. Some were left out in the open, in areas kids could easily access if they are the inquisitive type, including the master bedroom, bathroom, and closet. It is heavy and honestly heartbreaking to witness the condition the kids and animals have been living in. The filth, the chaos, the presence of drugs and weapons create an environment no child or pet should be subjected to. The dog lives confined to a bathroom. At least one cat was seen in the home. And the children, they were not just caught in the middle of a search, they have been living in this every day. You can feel the weight of that reality in almost every frame of the footage. That's one of the worst parts if you ever watch the hoarder shows, especially when the entire house is a disgusting mess, but then you see the kids' room and they actually keep it nice and clean, and it really just shows how much they hate the way that their house is and the conditions that they have to live in. I don't know if that's the case with the kids' rooms here, but either way, I'm sure they hate it. It's just depressing to live in a house like that. But Nick does not care about his kids at all. It's too much work for him to clean up or pay someone to clean up after the nanny leaves. You can feel the weight of that reality in almost every frame of the footage. Even basic things like clothing and mail were scattered randomly. Important documents were mixed in with fan art, trash, and drug gear. Nothing was organized, and there was no sense of separation between adult items and areas where kids lived and played. Finding Nick's mom's prescription bottle alongside the cocaine and paraphernalia raises bigger questions about his parents' role in all of this. Yeah, very, very strange that Celeste's prescription drugs were mixed in with everything else. Are they enabling it, turning a blind eye, actively involved? It seems like best case scenario, they're turning a blind eye and enabling it. At the very least, it points to a serious lack of boundaries. At worst, it suggests a generational pattern of dysfunction that these kids are sadly now caught up in. Yeah, even if that is the case, the man's 40, so way past the time where you can blame his childhood for anything that he's doing. It's also worth noting the behavior of the officers throughout the search. They were patient, respectful, and professional from start to finish. Despite the overwhelming filth, drug presence, and emotional weight of the scene, they kept their personal commentary to a minimum. They didn't mock or escalate. In fact, given everything they encountered, it's notable how restrained they were. While the search could have been even more thorough, it would have taken significantly longer, and they seemed to focus on securing the most critical evidence while minimizing disruption to the children who were present. And yeah, with how much of a mess it sounds like the place is, and it being a big house, there's no way you're going to search the entire thing in any reasonable amount of time. It would be a multi-days long thing. When they clean up the hoarders' houses, that's what it is. Days and days of cleaning that up and just throwing it into giant dumpsters. Okay, this starts. Oh, okay, I see. They're starting with their final thoughts on there, but this is the other one that has only like half of, or no, not half. I think he said it was probably like 75% of the video at least. I was not able to stop or rewind, so these are very off-the-cuff comments. The footage was a bit overwhelming. The house is so huge and cluttered that it's very disorienting to watch. Also, the officer we follow must be in charge, and he is all over the place. He sticks in one room for a few minutes, then shuffles between them, so the footage is all over the place. However, we hardly see the kids at all, and all the officers act very kind and patient with the family. The footage was taken 5/23/24, and it starts at 9/11. It starts in the police car as the officers approach the house. There's a dirty cat house slash tower and filled trash bags on the patio. So he can't even take his garbage down to the end of the driveway. I mean, really, just the laziest, most disgusting bums out there. Officer sees kids inside the house through the window. It takes about 6 knocks from the police on the door yelling search warrant before someone responds. One of Nick's daughters can be heard saying that Daddy told her not to answer the door. As soon as the doors open, it is a literal labyrinth of clothes and stuff. Hard to decipher where one room begins and another ends because every counter and table surface is covered in bottles, clothes, packages of food, and indicators of kids and their toys live there. There is not a lot of space to walk around the piles of stuff either. So if there's all this food and stuff laying around too, it's probably infested with bugs even. It's not even just messy, it's fully dirty. They find 2 females, April and Kayla, in the main bedroom. We have not seen them yet. The 6-year-old, stated by the officer, keeps saying something about her dad, kept telling her not to let them in as the police begin to walk around the kitchen. So, was it the 6-year-old that actually had to open the door? None of the adults could be bothered to do it, or they were too high to even notice that people were knocking on the door or just trying to ignore it. I don't know for sure if that's what happened here, but it kind of sounds like the 6-year-old is the one that had to open the door. That's the person taking on the most adult responsibilities at that point in time. The main room, kitchen, and dining room seem to be one big space, but again, hard to tell with furniture cues since everything is so cluttered and covered. Kayla shows up with her arms up, a very dry voice. She seems lethargic and out of it. There's some kind of room they walk by, kids' room. It has a rainbow IKEA shelf in it, and it is completely flooded with junk and clothing. The room is an actual hoarder-looking room. There are a few moments where the officer seems to be covering the camera with his hand, hard to tell if it's on purpose or accident. Literally just crap everywhere as they move about the house, just so many random piles of clothes. There's a stairway that has some kind of chair or love seat. It's the size of half of a couch. Okay, so I mean, that sounds like a love seat then. Just turned up over upside down at the bottom of the stairs. That clearly was done before the cops showed up. Not sure what that is all about. They have a big, fat, fluffy orange cat, though, and it's cute. Okay, well, at least there's a cute cat. Honestly, that's just more bad. Just basically same thing with the kids. They're being subjected to this when they shouldn't have to. So, but there's a stairway that has some kind of love seat just turned over upside down at the bottom of the stairs. What are they doing? They're pushing furniture down the stairs? Very bizarre. 10 minutes in, and we still have not seen Nick on camera. The garage is very cluttered. Looks like they just moved in with all the boxes of stuff. Given it is the garage, though, it honestly looks like the most normal room in the house. Lots of filled, packed luggage bags, too. The officer goes back upstairs, and we get a quick, close glimpse of one of the counters, and we can see food wrappers, bottles, and a box of goldfish. Opened. At 9:23, we finally are outside, and we see Nick meekly up in the driveway, looking pissed, like he's about to cry, and arms folded. He has short cargo shorts on and that crappy Jamaican colored tank. Because that was, if you remember, that was what was in the mugshot, is that terrible Jamaican tank that he liked to wear. Supposedly that was from the hedonism place that he went to. I don't know for sure if that's true, but that's what I've heard. The cop goes back in and starts getting supplies and gloves to start drug testing stuff in the main bedroom. A lot of this is part of the video is just the cops gathering supplies and talking about their attack plan on the house because it's so large and has so much stuff. We are in the bedroom to test. There's a lamp on the nightstand that just has a random tube balancing on top of it. Very, very cluttered space with lots of crap. And that really does seem like just some crackhead behavior, just random objects balancing on top of the lamp. I wouldn't be surprised he got high on something and got really focused on that just for whatever reason, got it into his head that he wanted to balance this thing on top of the lamp, and he's just staring at it, focusing. Probably spent a lot of time feeling very engaged, balancing some random tube on the lamp. It is important to note that the bedroom is right there in the main hallway of the house. You would easily walk by it every day if you lived there. I say that because of all the crap they had in their room, and it would be very easily accessible to the kids. As you walk by the outside of the room, you can look right under the bed and nightstands. The cops keep saying that the 2 adult females were found in this bedroom together. Incredible amount of bottles and makeup products and clothes, booze bottles and water cups on windowsills. The cop decides to go downstairs for a sec and give a quick scan of the stream room. We get a closer, quick glimpse of the kitchen table just covered in stuff and loose documents. We enter the stream room, and oddly, the ceiling doesn't seem finished. It just has these latex brand sheets covering it. Oh, people have been joking. Very well. May have been actual ceiling cats that were poking their heads through the ceiling. We head back upstairs to the bedroom. We can see shoes, garbage, and lots of clutter at the top of the stairs. They seem pretty dangerous with all the junk around the stairs. Yeah, it seems like a great idea with a bunch of kids around. Just have loose items scattered all around the stairs so people can easily fall down. At 9:31, we see him swab around the pillow, and it tests positive for cocaine. Then we see him pick up a black vial, looks like a lipstick tube, and when he unscrews it, we see white powder. The officer responds with a, "Oh yeah." He takes a picture of it. The officer says it is a measurable amount of cocaine in the bedroom. At 9:33, in that master bedroom, a measurable amount of cocaine. They also find a large stack of cash, according to them. An officer then states that Nick is asking about probable cause. He wants to ask questions on probable cause. The main officer we are following calls Child Protective Services to the house. A senior officer who has been talking to Nick says that Nick feels he's been hurt. When calling family services at 9:37, the officer says, "We located a measurable amount of cocaine and there are 4 children here." During this, we catch a glance at the main kitchen counter and it's just completely covered in booze bottles, even over by the sink. It's a bit dark and confusing in the main part of the house, and without pausing and rewinding, I have a hard time making specific objects out. At 9:39, we head outside to deal with April and Nick and finally cuff and arrest them. April is in a really slutty top. I do not try to call out fellow women for how they dress, but it is really inappropriate to wear around kids and a married couple, regardless of any other factor. Well, the kids, I agree, but if it's like a polycule, I think that's probably the most appropriate type of adult to wear something like that around. No? Kids for sure, but it's basically appropriate to wear whatever you want. You could wear a Glad bag around Nick and Kayla, and I'd say you're dressed up. And it's a black crop top that has a collar, and it's cut in a way that shows her cleavage heavily, and her stomach is out. She has a huge piece of rock jewelry in her belly button as well. She looks and sounds so dry. Honestly, it does not even look or sound like her. She actually looks like a trans person. Just very dry and unhealthy. For sure out of it and on something. Honestly, might just be hungover. Her throat sounds like it's drowning in sand. I cannot express just how gross and out of it she seems. As soon as they said about the sand, I'm like, okay, yeah, my throat's getting a little dry here too. 9:42. She has read her rights and refuses to speak without a lawyer. We see her cooperate easily with the officers and she gets handcuffed and out in the car with ease. We see the other officer cuff Nick and he is not fighting either. April asks for some shoes because she's barefoot. They keep asking her what room she's been hanging out. She mentions the main room and kind of avoids the question. It seems obvious that she knew that her being in the bedroom with Kayla, where all the cocaine was, would get her in big trouble. Nick does still look very pissed and arms still crossed before he is cuffed. The officer is very kind and heads back in to get her shoes, which are just haphazardly placed at the top of the stairs. As the officer heads back in the house, the fat orange cat gets out, and the kids, who have been outside on the patio/porch the whole time, say it can go outside. We can, I mean, if I was that cat, I would want to spend as much time outside as I possibly could. I wouldn't want to be hanging out in that trash house. We can hear a kind officer ask the kids about their pets to calm them down. They seem to be actually okay, no crying, and in decent spirits. But yeah, I mean, it probably feels like a rescue, right? I think Kayla is with them until a woman from Child Protective Services comes. She's the only one in the white and black striped shirt. 9:46. We are back in the main bedroom to keep testing stuff. The officers we are following seems to be the head honcho, as he keeps moving in and out of every room and making the calls and shots throughout, so we are often just walking around saying stuff. As he enters back into the bedroom, another officer mentions that they have found quite a bit of edibles in the room. They don't state what kind, but it can be assumed weed. If you did not know, they have edibles for shrooms, molly, and other mixtures that are actually easy and common to get, but also gummies. Just being accessible in the bedroom bothers me. Yeah, that's a good point. Crazy to just have easily accessible gummy edibles in your house with a bunch of kids. I mean, how easy would it be for a kid to be wandering around and see gummies and be like, oh, I want to eat those? And then they're going to have like a formative experience there and possibly end up like in the hospital or something. It, it's just absurd, the complete disregard that this guy has for his kids. Really, entirely shameful. I don't know how this guy can face the internet at all. I'd be just completely full of shame. I wouldn't be able to go on live stream again, but he's been doing it lately. At 9:47, the officer finally tests the black vial, and it's an instant blue swab. Cocaine right there on the bedstand. You could see it from the hallway. He continues to shuffle through the stuff on the bedstand, but the angle makes it a bit difficult to see exactly what is testing and touching on the stand. Then an officer tells him they found the rifle under the bed. The main officer heads out of the bedroom again, and we see a female officer taking care of Kayla, getting her ready to be dressed and sent to jail with others. We go back into the bedroom and see the rifle in its box on the bed. The box is literally just a cardboard box, and the gun is just sitting in it with styrofoam, not locked up at all, and it's a huge rifle. Okay, so I did give him a tiny bit of credit for having the gun and ammo in a safe, but if he has another one just under the bed, not locked up at all, I guess that negates the one very minor point that I gave him. At 9:50, we hear an officer say that they found 2 spent casings in the bedroom. Found snort tube on the nightstand, test positive for cocaine, and it's the first piece of evidence bagged. There are some open drinks and tubes on the bedstand. The black vial is bagged up as evidence. 2 credit cards in the name of April are found, and both the snort tube and the black vial were found right on top of the cards. At 9:54, we hear them say someone named Celeste had their medication right on the bedstand, literally right next to the cocaine vial, snort tube, and credit cards. The officer moves down to search around the floor and the bed and stand, and we see that the bedstand has actually been the red fridge Nick has been bringing around the whole time. He opens it, and I can only make out some jars of jam on the door from the angle, so food was there for sure. Why on earth would you have jam in your nightstand fridge? What are you eating besides like toast? It makes an absurd mess in your bed. I can kind of understand you have drinks or something in there, but jam right next to your bed? That is bizarre. So food was there for sure. Food and meds on top of an easily accessible stand next to cocaine. Oh yeah, that's if he's just got food and stuff there, that's more reason that a kid might go in there. They're just going to get food, which who knows if these kids are getting fed enough at all. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're going into the bedroom to try and find some jam to eat, and then, oh, what do you know? Cocaine. There is a white stuffed animal and a hairbrush at the foot of the fridge right next to the bed, so it does seem like the kids come in here, given that there are a few toys around on the floor. There seems to be a small laptop also stuffed into the space between the bed and the fridge, and the light looks like it's on. There is no comment on this by any officer. The rifle number is 20002638 and has multiple magazines with it in the bedroom, says one of the officers. Okay, so I wasn't sure if they had ammo with this one, but it's multiple magazines with the rifle sitting in a box. At 10, we hear them say they found even more edibles in the bedroom. They confirm again that the rifle was found under the bed. One officer pulls out a metal funnel, vial, object that is found with another glass vial with some kind of white powder in it. This was found in the shelf under the TV in the bedroom. They test the white powder, and there is a faint blue on the swab, and the officer indicates that this means it could be a mixture. He begs it for evidence. 10:03, they find some weed pipes and test them for other drugs. An officer comments at 10:04 in frustration that there is just so much stuff in here. The main officer tells them to be mindful of needles, as he now believes it could be a possibility. They are just continuing to dig through all the stuff on the floor. There's a big luggage case that he opens up, and it is completely packed with clothes and objects. The suitcase was already under a huge pile of clothes. He pushes off of it. How much clothing do these people own? I've never seen Nick dressed in anything that looks all that decent. They have all these clothes all over the place. Maybe Kayla is like a shopaholic or something. I guess that could be it. I think she just liked to lay in bed and watch Star Trek, it was. So maybe, yeah, she lays in bed watching Star Trek and shopping all day. At 10:06, the officer decides to split up the team. He is leaving the bedroom to the others as he wants to go down and test Nick's studio. One of the other officers calls it a little lair, lol. They also find April's purse in the bedroom. We head downstairs to the studio at 10:08, and we also cross paths with the Child Protective Service woman. There is a very cluttered and full library room right before you enter the studio. There are 4 monitors with the Joker painting tucked behind them out of sight, and they are still on it, and it looks like he ended some stream. Very full, cluttered shelves that the officers dig through. They oddly keep finding random $5 bills throughout his junk. It looked like some of them might have been dollar origami, but some of them were just stuffed into cups or pen holders. Yeah, I mean, maybe he needed to be ready to do a quick snort at any point in time. And doing dollar origami, that sounds like something a person on stimulants would do, get really focus on some dumb thing like origami and just sit around your house doing that. The officer tests a few things he finds, but nothing suspicious, besides tons of bottles and trash seem to be in there. One officer does find some baggie of weird stuff. They guess maybe cloves or pepper. The main officer thinks it might be a whiskey starter. Then an officer brings a big metal safe down at 10:12, and they said they found it in the bathroom. We can see a dirty Ziploc bag poking out of it. The officer says he will deal with it in a bit, and they go back upstairs. At 10:16, we are just rummaging through the black shelves and testing random bits, but nothing is really down here. At 10:17, the officers with the safe returns and asks for help with it, and we go up to a small red bathroom on the main floor. I have to assume this is the main bathroom everyone uses when they don't need to shower, and the safe was found in here. The officer says it was under the sink, but the sink is one of those pillar sinks, so there is no bottom. I wonder if it was just tucked off to the side. I mean, it sounds like that would have to be the case if there's no cabinet below it, right? They just got the safe full of drugs, openly visible in the most commonly, or what seems to be the most commonly used bathroom. The safe is opened up and the contents are spread across the top of the toilet bowl for testing and evidence collecting. We can see a scale, blue snort tubes, and very dirty Ziplocs with cards and powders in them. I get they're making do with what they have, but I would not be going anywhere near the toilet in a house like this. I mean, when do you think the last time that thing was cleaned? And these people are inebriated all the time. I'm sure there's splatter all over the thing. No, thank you. At 10:19, he tests the cards and bag in one of the Ziplocs, and it tests positive for cocaine. Now we start bagging all the objects in the bathroom safe and calling them out as evidence. Evidence 8. Large corner cut. This is what they called the large bag with a huge amount of white substance in it. He will test it when they get back, he says. Evidence 9. Ziploc baggie containing multiple bags. One baggie has powder and it has KKK written on it. Evidence 10. Ziploc baggie containing multiple baggies with powder. Evidence 11. Digital scale. Evidence 12. Metal object funnel. The officers are unsure containing powder. So there's a digital scale. Was Nick selling this stuff on the side too, buying in bulk maybe and selling some of it to recoup? Or maybe he just bought so often he wanted to make sure he wasn't get ripped off. Could be either of those. Evidence 13, 2 snort tubes, plastic straws, and 2 cutters. After packing up all the contents in the safe at 10:23, we head back downstairs to the studio to continue testing. He goes through some drawers and they are just packed with objects and loose documents. At 10:25, they continue to search through the library that is outside the studio room, and we then go back up the bathroom to double check for any evidence. We get a sight of a skeleton model that is just hanging out in the open space of the living room. We also see a dining room table by the windows just completely covered in junk and food packages. I wonder if they mistook that skeleton for Nick at first. You know, they saw it out of the corner of their eye or whatever. They're like, what? I thought we put you in the car. At 10:26, we head into a bathroom with a hot tub. Oddly, even though there is a ton of stuff in here as well, the floor is pretty clear of junk and it is the cleanest of the rooms. So many lotions and makeup products are all over the counters, and of course, more booze bottles, empty and half full, on the counter and windowsills. There are many windows in the entire house that just have booze bottles on them. How trashy is that? I guess they live in the middle of nowhere. It's not like they live in some suburban area or whatever where people are going to walk by and see that, but still, just no shame. No, no shame at all. Yeah, let's just advertise this. If anybody were to look at our house from the outside, they'd be able to see what loser alcoholics we are. There are many windows in the entire house that just have booze bottles on them. At 10:30, we are still digging through the hot tub room. They headed into some kind of laundry room, and it barely has any visible floor, just piles of clothes and filled laundry baskets. There's a hallway window, and there are 2 bottles of booze, and right next to them on the same windowsill are little teddy bear figures. Sad. It is crazy the way the kids' toys are just mixed in with all of this stuff. It is 0% surprising that the daughter tested positive for cocaine. I cannot tell what kind of room we are in at 10:38, but it seems to be some kind of closet room or bedroom. It just has shelves and more clothes. There is just a huge rack of so many adult clothes right in the middle. He digs through a random trinket box and finds another bullet that he takes as evidence. Louder with Crowder mug, spotted at 3340. So, apparently Nick Rekieta is a Steven Crowder fan. Maybe if people watched him regularly, they already knew that, but I don't know. A little bit lame that you would be giving that guy money. But the way Nick treats his wife, I can see why he would want to sponsor Steven Crowder. berating and abusing his wife. I guess he finds solidarity in Steven Crowder. He's like, oh, let me join the club, literally. At 10:36, we find another safe, and the officer searches for Kayla to get the code so they don't have to bust it open, like he said. Then we head back into garage, and right before it crashes on me, an officer says that they found 2 handguns hanging out in the garage. It ended at 10:37:27 for me. So, quite a bit of overlap because they're searching the same place or whatever, but different body cam perspectives and notes from 2 different people. I mean, I appreciate both of these very much, but these first notes were very, very nice, though. They did an excellent job with these. I think this was the random mother who didn't even use Kiwi Farms that did this first one. So shout outs to her. Shout outs to both of them, but especially how nice those notes are. And at the end of this stream that Nolan was doing, he answers a question about why he thinks the government is doing so much to protect Nick. And I thought it was interesting, so I'll just play a couple minutes here and then wrap it up.
Why is the government covering for him? Here's my theory. That's a great question. Here's my theory. I believe that the prosecutor made representations to Nick that the body cam footage would never ever come out if he pled guilty to the charges. And there is 2 shady things happening with the prosecution. Number one, using something like that as a means to compel a confession is unethical. It's not immediately obvious to me if such a thing is unconstitutional, and the plea deal is therefore invalidated as a result. The other thing that happened is that this body cam footage was entered into evidence in Rekieta's criminal case to help April. And it is also generally considered unethical for a prosecuting attorney to allow co-defendants to run joint defenses for each other when they're tried separately. So it's a very strange setup that the body cam footage was entered into evidence to defend April from Nick's perspective, but then also, if part of the deal was that the body cam footage would remain off the record, number one, it would have to be an informal part of the plea deal because, number one, it was not entered into the plea deal formally. And number two, after the plea deal was read, the judge asked the prosecution and the defense, is there any part of the plea deal which is not on this public record that I need to know about? At that point, if the body cam footage staying off the record was part of the plea deal, then they should have said, yes, there is, and should have told the judge off the record, in private what that was, and had.
Oh, obviously, Noel doesn't know. He's just speculating here. But that could kind of make sense to me that the prosecutor said to Nick, hey, we'll avoid entering this body cam footage into evidence if you plead guilty. Because he knows Nick is desperate to have this not made public, so he thinks that'll make his job easier. And Nick will probably be down for that to avoid it going public. But it's like just a spoken kind of handshake thing. It's not official or written down in the record or anything like that. But then when the judge asks about it, is there anything that's not specifically written down in this plea deal? Any other additional details? And would he have to say that here? Maybe that's why the prosecutor is trying to help Nick out here by keeping the body cam footage hidden, because it would expose that he made a kind of under the table deal.
Yes, there is, and should have told the judge off the record, in private what that was, and had that sealed. But it seems like it's an informal arrangement where they just said, like, yeah, sure, if it doesn't go to trial, then it doesn't get entered into evidence. And now it's looking like it is entered into evidence, and they did not properly handle that, and it might come out, and the prosecutor is afraid of being sued or afraid of his plea deal being thrown out. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it is extremely strange. Why did they even give him a plea deal? I don't know.
So I just want to throw that in there because I do think it's very, very bizarre how much pushback and shenanigans there have been around getting this body cam footage. And especially the prosecutor now essentially working with Nick to keep body cam footage away from the public. So, I mean, I guess I appreciate that the prosecutor got some level of punishment for Nick Rekieta, but he basically undoes all of that credit that I would give him, and then some, by trying to suppress the body cam footage. Like, what is your problem, man? All right, I'm desperate to see this body cam footage. The Nick Rekieta stuff is some of the first stuff I ever covered on this channel. It's part of why I wanted to start doing this. I was very invested in the story. Like, this is fun. So, screw him. What a bum loser. And I better see this body cam footage. If he does anything else to try and suppress this, I don't know what he would even do at this point more. Sounds like it's mostly the sheriff that's keeping us from seeing this, but screw all of them. Very, very rude of them to be keeping this from us. We deserve to see this body cam footage. That's how it's supposed to go.